Hi, everybody, and welcome back for this conversation with somebody that I am so excited to introduce to you, Serele Katz. This conversation is part of a mini-series that I am putting together to highlight and showcase the amazing faces of people who have taken my course Vessel. Vessel is a course officially on self-development, but really it's so much more. And I have such a hard time telling people what Vessel is about. And so for this year, I decided to ask people who have actually been through Vessel to tell you guys more about it in a way that I never could. And when I was thinking about the different people, the different faces I wanted to have on, Serele was the most unexpected interloper. I don't know why that word just popped into my head. I'm a vocabulary nerd. I don't think I've ever used the word interloper after 10th grade, but she was an interloper into my world that now I am so excited to call student and friend and so pleased and thrilled to introduce you guys to. So Serele, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, what you do, and how you've landed in my world.
That is a good question. And I have to say, in the beginning, I did feel very much like an interloper. But I think we finally come to a place of feeling that sense of belonging, that this is my world too now. And part of that is being here and coming on stream with you.
Yeah, we were just talking before we had the recording on. Serele, you were just sharing how like this being on screen situation is full circle for you. So
Yes.
can you tell the people listening why, where you were before you met me, how you ended up meeting me, and what is this circle that you're coming to the top of right now?
Okay, so I love this module because everything I'm telling you kind of ties in to resonating with that sense of self and that yes. Fally knows about my year of saying yes.
You're doing module 2, right? You chose the module on integrity.
We're in module 2, yes, which is about integrity and tapping into your inner yes and your inner no and really hearing your own voice speaking. In any case, I was coming to a stage in my life where my kids were getting a little older, and I was thinking ahead to what my next 20, 30, 40 years would look like when my main role wasn't going to be hands-on mother, doing all the physical stuff that comes along with it, diapering, feeding, all of that. That was not necessary anymore. My kids were growing up. And I needed to find something that would give me that flexibility to be the kind of mother and wife and continue my life in the way that I wanted it, but also where I would find a sense of fulfillment, a sense of purpose, a sense of what can I offer the world and how can I bring that together? So after giving it a lot of thought, and it was really this module, it was really a lot of thought of what's going to work for me. I had to kind of create something because I had a list of criteria that had to fit into my regular life that I wasn't willing to give up on. And I came up with coaching. It was something I had a degree in college in psychology and education. It was a direction that I always leaned in. I had a part-time job over the years that I actually still do, selling. I'm a sales rep for a very, very well-known women's brand of clothing. And I always say I started with working. You did not know that?
I did not know that.
Yes. As my kids were growing up, I worked for a sales company, a women's very luxury brand clothing company. And
Oh my God, we're going to have to sidebar after this recording.
I hold trunk shows 2 or 3 times a year.
No way.
And I always say I started working with women from the outside in, and now working with women and men and people, just whoever from the inside out. Everything can come back to this because when you're dressing someone, you can have a random variety of 100 things, and each woman is going to put on something, and what makes one person feel great isn't going to make the other person feel great. And that's part of what I loved about my job. When I dressed a woman, she had a simcha to go to, or just a random Shabbos in shul, and she put something on that felt right to her. Her shoulders went back. There was a light in her eye. The confidence came out. So
I have to like pause this right there because I don't think people value enough what you just shared, because we tend to look at clothing. I mean, again, people don't know this, but right before the recording went on, we were joking about how I'm so proud of you that you're not wearing black today, and we're so proud of me that I'm not wearing a hoodie today. We tend to default to our comfort zones with clothing, and I am not a materialistic person at all when it comes to clothing. I wear the same hoodie and same gym clothes. Like if you see me in a black t-shirt, it's because I have 10 of them. It's the same t-shirt. I just have 10 of them. And I never truly considered or articulated so perfectly what you just said, that clothing is so much more than just like a gashmias, mundane thing.
It really is.
Clothings do make the man. And like you say, you'll wear the right thing and your shoulders go back, and it starts from the outside in, but it's not less valuable.
Exactly. So at that time in my life, I was working with women from the outside in. And now I decided it was time to work with people from the inside out. And I took a great coaching course with Chaya Belsky called Infinity Coaching. Loved it. Finished the course. My husband, who is my biggest champion, was pushing me. What's your next step? He happens to be an acquaintance of Rabbi Ezra Max, who's been on this podcast.
Not on this podcast. I interviewed him for Vessel. It was an extra call.
Yes,
I don't
exactly.
I don't even think that call is public. I think it's the locked behind the paywall of Vessel and Ignite. So people who are listening won't necessarily know. But again, that's why you're missing out.
You join Vessel and you
Right.
get to hear from other
This stuff is
experts
there.
as well.
Yeah, if you do get to listen to that call, the people listening, I will tell you the highlight of my call, I think it was your highlight as well, when he talked about having bail money taped to the inside of his closet.
Yes.
Yeah. We have
Yeah.
people who have bail money taped to the end. If you have never considered that you need bail money and what you are willing to go to jail for, what you are willing to be bailed out for, you might not have your value systems intact.
True. In any case, I connected with Rabbi Max. We had a couple of phone calls, and he handed me my first client. And I kept telling him, why do you trust me? What do you see in me? And he was able to see in me abilities that I was not yet ready to recognize on my own. And he acted as a mentor towards me. We were working together. He was handing me clients. And I was in a place of just saying, yes, we're going to make things happen. I kind of manifested for myself. I did not want to go about this by walking around and talking to every person I met at the grocery store and telling them I'm a coach, I'm a coach, I'm a coach. I did not want to come from it in that way. I did not want to be posting it on my status. I wanted to come from a place of establishing myself professionally. And if someone were to hear about me, it was because they heard about me from a professional avenue, not because I told them. I'm not sure why that was important to me, but that was something very important to me.
No, I actually do get that. The minute you say I didn't want to post that on my status, one of the things that I wanted to do with this particular series is I wanted the voices of the people that you don't know about, because they are not posted on people's statuses. And I'm not knocking statuses. I post stuff that I do on WhatsApp status as well.
Sure.
But when you shared about your background, that you actually went to college for what? Psychology and education. You have an academic background. You're a professional. You've been working. It's not like, oh, I'm a healer now. It's,
Right.
I have a certain, I mean, we'll get to that part in the module about having a certain amount of integrity and wanting the integrity, the actions to speak louder than, the flyer than you're putting on status.
Yeah.
I'm totally here for that.
Yeah. In any case, I was working with Rabbi Max for a little while. Most of the clients and challenges he handed to me, I agreed to take on, even though some of them could only see me Friday afternoon or evenings, which I didn't want to do. Some of the cases were very challenging, really pushed my limits. Those are my favorite cases because the amount of growth that I got, through working with those people. And again, with the mentorship of Ezra Max, of course, I could not have done it on my own at that point. And
Paid
again,
advertisement? Is he paying you?
of course. Yes. You know what? I think I'm also just very grateful for the people around me who saw in me a value that I didn't recognize on my own yet. And I think we'll continue the trajectory of where I landed after coaching and how I ended up in Vessel. But I think it's all this work that led me to be sitting here today. Because I think today, after going through breathwork training with you, which we'll get to in a moment, and then ending up in Vessel after all of that, that's why this module resonated with me, because I think after doing all that work, I was finally able to just quiet myself down and think for myself and say, you know what? There really is a value here. I can accept that. I can appreciate that. I can work with that. And I think therefore this is the point that this for me is like a graduation ceremony where I'm able to come out of my hiding place, so to speak, and put myself, it's a professional avenue. It's not, again, just yapping about myself to anybody, but I'm able to kind of reveal myself that, yes, I am a coach. I am a breathwork facilitator. I love what I do. I've been helping people, and I can tap into that inner knowing of who I am and embrace it and share it. And it was this whole road that got me here. So I'm very happy to be here today. As you hear, it's kind of
I was so excited when you said yes, because I know this part of you that's like, I'm not putting myself out there on statuses. I'm like, when I asked the different people, like I knew that some people were going to have, we're probably going to be an immediate no, but I wanted to give them the benefit of asking them first. And you came back. I think you were the first one that came back with an immediate yes. And I'm like, oh, what a win. I did not see that coming.
Yes. Well, you should have seen it coming, because I said yes to a whole breathwork training after coming to one class.
Okay, so you have to share that story about how you ended up in that class.
So Ezra called me up one day and he said, you must go to this breathwork class. Fally Klein is giving a breathwork class. It's going to be one of the last groups she's giving. You must go. It's life-changing. I said, Ezra, I have a client in an hour. You know I can't go. He said, bring the client with you or rearrange your schedule. You're going to this. Now, at that point, I had no idea what breathwork was. None whatsoever. I said, you know what? I'm going to trust this guy. He hasn't led me wrong till now. I'm going to go. Called my client. She couldn't come. Went on my own. Subsequently did breathe her afterwards because it was something that she really needed. But in any case, had an amazing, amazing experience. Literally, I was Googling what is breathwork as I drove to Crown Heights, where the group was. I'm not someone who's coming from in this world. I was dropped into it.
Yeah, you were very much dropped into it. I remember having a certain amount of intimidation because Ezra had texted me. He's like, I'm sending you someone. But I remember being intimidated because it was kind of a secret at that point. But I was just about to launch the advertisement, the registration for the breathwork training. And so it was unofficial. And he was like, Fally, you have to impress Serele because she's coming to the breathwork training. And, when we spoke after, your face, you were like, this is not my world. This is the heebie-jeebie. And you were like, can I come to your breathwork training? And I remember feeling like, oh my God, I didn't even open registration. Serele, who I don't even know. Mm-hmm. And I remember the words I told you. I was like, Serele, I think you're overqualified. I was so intimidated by you. I was like, you are so pretty. You're too pretty to be in my breathwork training. But I also couldn't believe it because I was so used to, people who had already been bought into my world. People who had taken Vessel or taken Ignite and they kind of knew me. And I was assuming that people joining the training would be people who had a prior relationship with me. And you were like, I don't care. I have no idea who you are. I'm joining. It was literally your year of yes.
Yes, but it wasn't a year of yes that was just random and wild. Right. You know me by now. You know I'm a very logical, thought out person.
Yes, let's put this full transparency. After day 1, or maybe it was day 2 of breathwork training, Serele almost ran away. Just have to say. For all her yeses.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, for all her yeses, she almost ran away screaming.
Yes, it's true. But I think that comes back to this module.
Yeah.
Because my yeses were based on intellect and logic, and then also that heebie-jeebie wow kind of feeling, I was able to stay. I was able to say yes because I had an incredible experience during the breath work. But the things that you said before were so grounded in Torah.
You mean my introduction to breathwork?
Your introduction was so grounded in Torah. Your sources were so insightful. They reframed some of my thinking, in certain areas. And they were so truthful and so emistic that I was able to be along for the ride of the rest of it that I didn't quite understand. Right. Or even see. I did see the value in it because I had been working with a client at the time when I decided to join the breathwork. And I was working with him and he was working in conjunction with a colleague of ours doing breathwork. And I did not know, again, I really didn't know what breath work was then. But I
You
saw
were doing coaching with him and he
I
was
was
doing
doing
breath work.
coaching with the client,
Okay.
and he was working simultaneously
Okay.
with a colleague of ours. I can
Yep.
say the name or not.
You
And
see?
all I knew was that he was working with Esty from Lakewood doing
Okay.
breath work. I didn't know
Okay.
what that meant,
So
but
you
I
had
did
seen the
know.
results of breath work on his work.
Yes, and I
Okay.
did know that when I was working with him, the value of the breath was really across the board with all my clients. I don't think there's a client that I worked with that I didn't have to stop at some point and tell them, let's just ground ourselves, let's take a deep breath, let's get back to center. And I saw the value in the breath before even knowing how deep it was and how much further we can go with it.
Wow.
So I think like everything just kind of came together for me. So as much as it was a yes, and it seemed very like crazy or unthought out, it was a very deep yes that came from a place of, yes, I think there's something here. Let me explore it. Let me throw myself into the deep end because I don't really know what this is all about. I think had I known a lot of the stuff that I saw like on the first day, the random heebie-jeebie, whatever you want to call it, woo-woo kind of stuff, I don't know if I could have been there. But because I saw results before I knew what it was, I knew it was something I had to explore further.
Well, I'm going to take that as high praise because I know that I tend to often lead with the heebie-jeebie because I just take it for granted. Like, what do you mean? Don't you see the same things I see? Aren't we all in this world? But I remember being in, we did season one, we did module one of the breathwork training, then we did module two, which was September, and Vessel starts at the end of October, right? It starts after Sukkot. And in the room of the breathwork training, there were, I think the majority of the people in the room had taken Vessel.
Yes.
But Vessel was a prerequisite for the breathwork training, which means you didn't have to have taken Vessel before taking the training, but in order to graduate, you would have to take Vessel. So there were
Yes.
only a handful of you had not taken Vessel. And I remember in September, the people in the room were like egging you on a little bit, like, oh, you have no idea what's coming because of Vessel. And I remember watching it like from a distance, being like, I don't know, like it's hard for me because I know what it means to teach Vessel, but it was very interesting for me to hear the feedback of the people in the room who had taken Vessel. And I remember thinking from across the room, I remember who was teasing you and I remember where you were sitting. And I remember thinking to myself, I really do wonder. I really do wonder what's going to happen when Serele like opens up that Pandora's box. And then literally the minute Vessel started, you were like texting me behind the scenes, like, oh my God, what is this? I've been waiting my whole life for this. So, and you chose to talk about module too. So right from the beginning, something was sparking in you. So tell us more about that.
Yes, I think that's all part of this conversation. Just getting, I feel in my coaching practice and in my life personally, when you want someone to make change or you're working towards a goal, the key is to strip the person down to their very core and let the person lead you in how they're going to make those changes. You can't tell someone what to do. It can't be me saying, oh, okay, I see your whole situation. I see where you are. I see where you want to get to. Let me tell you what to do. I actually could. I would love to. But that's not what works.
Imagine we had that level of authority. Like, just do what I tell you. Don't have questions.
Yes. But that's not what works. What really works is when you get the person to quiet the voices in their head down, to kind of rise above that. And this is with coaching and breathwork is so helpful in this as well, because that really quiets the voices down and it gets you deep into your body. But even before I was in the breathwork world with coaching, you have to get the person to really just quiet all those narrators in their heads, those biased narrators that, have been telling them what to do, quiet all the people around them, and let's get back to you. What resonates with you? How do you think you can solve this? Part of being a coach is to create an environment where, with love, safety, and belonging, that's something that you speak about a lot. But if someone doesn't feel that, then they can't be open with you. And it's that love, safety, and belonging, and that knowing that every person is whole and capable and has what they need to succeed. And my job is not to tell them what to do. My job is to bring that out in them so they can help themselves. And that's where the power is, because no one wants people telling them what to do. They just don't. But when you figure something out for yourself, and when that light bulb goes on and you say, yes, this feels right, these are the steps I need to take, and you're resourcing from within yourself, that's where the magic happens. So I love this module.
Thank you. I struggled with putting together this module, and I'll tell you why. Because this module is the module on integrity, and what I have found is that when people engage with this kind of work, they love to throw the word authenticity around. And integrity and authenticity are not the same thing. And what I find people saying after they do some coaching or some therapy or ayahuasca or whatever it is that people are into these days is like, I need to be my authentic self. And I'm not inclined to disagree with that. Like, I think that there's something to be said for authenticity, but this module is not about authenticity. It's about integrity, which is something different. It's to me, and you kind of touched upon it before, and I don't know if we see it in the same way, but you'll tell me more about that. I redid the modules last year. I re-recorded all of the modules. So you didn't hear what it used to sound like. Right. It's the same, but better, more polished. And some of the polishing that I felt I had to do with this particular module was really differentiate for people the difference between authenticity and integrity. And what integrity is for me is, like you say, it's the wholeness of a person. And integrity has to be about holding yourself to a higher value system. So for me, Torah was a very big part of it. Yes. But for you, it may not be Torah, but when you were sharing something about what I shared before the breathwork, right? And I say something different each time. Sometimes it's related to the Parsha or the time of year. I don't always remember I make it up as I go along because there's always something that I'm excited about, that I'm learning about, that ties in beautifully to what I do. But that piece of there has to be something higher. It cannot just be the heebie-jeebie. It cannot just be like, this is me today. I'm authentic and now you have to accept me. There's an integrity piece to this. Can you share more? Because it sounds like that's something that you value very highly with your work and with your clients.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was able to resonate with all of this, because that's exactly the piece that drew me in. There has to be a higher value. There has to be a value system in place. Otherwise, what's authentic? Someone screaming and yelling in the street like a baby. That's where you talk about the social self versus your essential self. Yeah, a baby will scream and yell and cry or laugh and shout. They don't have anything holding them in. So that's authentic. But what is that without integrity, without a moral compass, without a way to live by? We can each be our own self. I consider in my sheitel, you could wear your mitpachat, but we're answering to a higher value. So we can show ourselves very authentically in a way that feels right to us within that higher value. There's so much room for expression within that. But without that, it's kind of like just someone with no boundaries. Something that's just all over the place where's the value in that? There has to be a guideline. There has to be a guiding factor to that. There has to be kind of rules to live by in place. And for me and for you, that's Torah. And as long as everything else you do comes back to Torah and comes back to truth, then you can show your authentic self within that. But otherwise, you're just a mess. Look what's going on in the world around us. It's a mess. Everything has to be true. We have to believe in everything. Everything has to be acceptable. Look what a mess it got us into. No, there has to be that higher value system. And that's why I was able to resonate so strongly, even though this was not my world and it wasn't something I was used to. But when there's MS behind it, then it can work for me. And I see that with my clients too. There has to be, something guiding their life. There has to be a goal that they're working towards. Freedom is not being all over the place. That's not freedom. Freedom is working within a set of rules and then finding who you are within those rules, what feels right to you within those rules. How are you going to show yourself within those rules? And that will be different for everybody. And that's the beauty of Torah, because you look at the world and look how many different types of Jews there are around us. And that's where we need to be accepting and not judgmental and be ba'achtos. But there is not one particular way that you have to ascribe to Torah. We can have the Hasidim and the Misnagdim and the modern Orthodox and whatever labels you want to throw on people. But as long as we are doing the right thing at the core, we're good to go. Then find your authentic self and see in which way that works for you.
So now I have to ask you a real question, because when you're sharing about as long as there's MS behind it, right? And I know that the Torah conversation for some people is like, okay, the Stubis Yaakov, they don't want to hear that, right? So when we're working with a client, how do you distill that? How do you help a client come down to the core of what is really, really true for them? Because the truth can't be an outside thing. And honestly, I love being able to have Torah as a higher value system because it's the easiest thing. Well, it's a hard thing to do. But when someone else wrote the rule book and you're like, it's very clear cut, but that's the outer work almost. Maybe I'm not saying it perfectly because I don't want to define Torah as outer work because I actually believe Torah is the inner work. But taking it away from Torah for a second and moving it to like strict coaching. What if you had a client who was like, I don't know, don't talk to me about the Torah stuff. Like, where's the truth? What
First
is
of all,
the
I'm
truth?
not coming in as a rabbi. I have to know what my value system
Well, you
is.
can't be a rabbi anyway. You would be a Rebbitzin.
A Rebbitzin. I'm not anyone's spiritual advisor.
Right.
Everyone has to make those choices for themselves. I have to be coming into the space in the way that works for me.
Got it.
But I'm not anybody's spiritual advisor. They have to find their own truth in that. But I'll give you an example. I was working with someone who, was on their own path. And we were working on, towards several goals. And one of the things that he wanted to work on, not that I told him to, but that he wanted to work on was, he didn't want to hear anything religious or, he wasn't ready to go there, but he did want to work on connecting to Hashem. And I helped him because, again, it had to come from him. It could not be what I thought he should be doing. It had to come from him. And he decided that what he really, even though he's not maybe keeping everything that he was raised with, he wants to be a person that's still connected to Hashem, that still has a relationship with Hashem. And his thing was he's putting on tefillin every day. And he didn't want to be set to a certain time. It was all on, in his way, on his path towards his goal. And we got him to a place where he was putting on tefillin every day, sending me a picture. And I have to tell you, it grew a little bit from there. So, but that wasn't me telling him what to do. That was him deciding what to do for himself. And as a coach, again, I'm going to repeat, I'm coming in with me as myself and my set of values, but I'm not putting that on someone else. I'm not there to be a spiritual advisor. I'm there to be a coach. So Torah is MS for me. And I think I exude that. I live that. But as a coach, that's not necessarily my role, unless you want that to be my role, and then we can set a goal and work towards that. So
how would you define?
Distinction.
So how would you define like that for you Torah is your truth, and so for you being in integrity means that that's your higher value. But if we can't always assume that based on the people that we work with, how do we help someone find? Again, all of this is about integrity. How do we find and allow and enable people to come to their truth, whatever their truth is, taking ourselves out of the picture? Like, is there a universal truth that we can get everybody to agree on? And if there isn't, how do we help our clients and ourselves navigate the fact that deep inside, at our very core, we all have our different way of seeing the world and our different ideas of what that would mean?
Okay, so I think that comes down to, that's a slightly different question because really, it's about the client seeing their truth and themselves at their core. I'll give you an example. I had a client recently who, she came to me for breathwork, but we were doing a little bit of coaching also. And we started with one of the sessions actually using the pies model, which comes up in a later module.
Yeah, I think in module 3,
she came to me with something that she was very angry about. She was very upset about, and she wanted to kind of release it and move through it. She had been in a medical situation, and she had a plan, and her plan wasn't listened to. It wasn't respected. And she was really, and it was months ago, and she was really, really angry about it. And she was angry at the doctor, and she was angry at her husband, and she was angry at many people around her. And through working through the pies model, through working through conversation, we got to a place where she realized the person she was really angry at was herself, because ultimately she did not speak up for what she wanted. We did a breathwork session. And after the session, we spoke a little further. And she said she realized that this is something that's an issue for her throughout her life. And she came to a place of not being able to say yes anymore. Her automatic answer was always no, because she felt like she didn't have a voice. And if she said yes, she might be stepped on and walked over. Okay, so we started off with a specific story that happened to her. And through conversation and questions and a lot of inner thinking on her part. And then we put it aside for a few minutes and we let her breathe and feel into her body. Then we came to a point where, wow, she realized something universal about herself that was hampering her in her life. And we started to speak about different ways in which she could actually, instead of saying no, start saying yes and coming back to her true self of a person who wanted to say yes, who wanted to be there for other people, but she shut herself down because she got so caught up in never knowing when the boundary was. Again, this comes back to boundaries, never knowing when to say no. So, it's still a work in progress. We're still working on it, but she's coming to a place of being able to come back to her true self and to see what she really wants and how she really wants to come across in the world. She doesn't want to be a no person. She wants to be a yes person in the right way, in the way that feels true to her. So I think that's like a perfect example of taking someone from a big story and narrowing it down to the very smallest story, but that became the story of her life. And we're bringing her back to her truth now because she wasn't living comfortably with it, wasn't sitting well with it. So now we're going to bring her back to a place where she can live well within herself and feel that she's, answering to her true essence and to her true self by being able to be honest and about what she can do, what she can't do, and about knowing herself. And I think that is huge and very powerful.
That really is, because this is, I think, that difference between authenticity and integrity. I think for a lot of people who are bandying that word, another vocabulary, they're throwing that word around, authenticity. It's like, I'm just going to say yes to anything, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to say yes to anything. I'm going to say no to anything. It's based on what I feel. And it sounds like what the work that you were doing with this person was, it's not about what I feel. It's about having a value system, wanting to know myself in a certain way. And what do I need to do to get myself to that place where I can say a very balanced and very grounded yes, where there's nothing blocking me. I don't have to work through any blocks. That for me, when I'm ready to say yes, it's a full yes. And when I'm ready to say no, it's a full no. And it's not done out of fear or people pleasing.
Correct. And in order to do that, you really have to know yourself. I'll bring it back to me, for example, after that first session, that first season when I was ready to run away.
The season, not okay. So we have to explain it for people listening because they have no idea what we're talking about. So breathwork training is divided up into 3 modules. So It's a week in May, a week in September, and then another week in February. These modules were so out of the park insane that we actually joked about. We felt like we were on some reality TV show. And I don't know who started this, but someone by mistake, instead of saying module 1, said season 1 because it literally felt like a TV show. That's it. We had adopted it. We no longer have modules. If you go onto my website where you go on the training tab and you see the Azamra, the breathwork training, it doesn't say module 1, 2, and 3. It's at season 1, 2, and 3 because. So not when you had your first session with me after the first season.
I'll interrupt. By the time season 1 was over, I was in.
You were.
It was the first 2 or 3 days. Yeah. Then we had the pool breath
that night.
And that turned everything around for me.
Yeah, the night before the pool breath work, we had a late night.
Yes.
And you experienced your first constellation.
Yes.
Yeah, you almost didn't make it back in the morning for pool breath work.
Yes, that was insane. Okay, that was still insane. I still didn't quite get an understanding of that. But in season 3, we had a good time with the constellation. We already turned full corner.
Wait, you were based on Mikdash.
I was based on Mikdash. I was.
Yeah. Time. There are people listening to this who have no idea what we're talking about, and I'm very comfortable with that.
Yeah. There's an inside conversation happening here. That's good.
There is. It's like kind of if you know, you know, and if you don't, we'll see you in training next year.
Exactly. But in any case, I remember standing there and I was talking to 2 people. And one person was like trying to convince me and tell me, and I was like, stop. And the other person was kind of just gently like normalizing things for me. I needed to hear, I didn't need someone telling me how to feel or how to think. At that moment, I needed to hear it. I needed to process it. I needed to let it sit within me. And then I needed to tell myself if this felt right for me. I didn't need someone else to tell me that. I needed, all my yeses came from a very deep place. And that's why there's value to the yeses. But I needed to think of through myself. And that's what we do in coaching. That's what we do in breath work. We let everybody come back to themselves. Come back to yourself. What feels right to you? How do you want to proceed? Which way do you want to get to your goal? In breath work, it's take all the words out of it. Let's not think so much. Let's go above. I think you mentioned somewhere else here that the Baal Tanya says that our essence, our true essence is above our machshava, our dibor, and our maisa, right? That's what breathwork does for you. It puts you above it. It brings you back to your source, to your body. And I think the combination of the coaching and the breathwork together, and whether I'm working with someone as a coach or as a breathwork facilitator, by nature, because I'm trained in both and because I'm living both, you get both of me.
You get the best of both worlds.
Exactly. And I think after doing my coaching and working in it and going through the breathwork training with you and then coming to Vessel, actually, most people do it the other way around. But for me, it tied it all with a bow. It just wrapped it all up so beautifully. And I love that I did it this way.
Yeah, you were the one who really highlighted for me. I'm going back to Ezra, who sent you, Rabbi Max. He was the one who kept telling me that Vessel needs to be a baseline. And I, I was kind of like, I don't know, because I have a hard time telling people, well, you need to do this, this, and this. I don't like telling people how to spend their money, where to spend their money. And I don't love selling my own product, but watching your progression, having done the training first, Vessel second, and then right after Vessel wasn't even completely done yet. And you texted me, you're like, can I join Ignite? Am I crazy? Yeah. And I'm like, you really want to do that now? Like, that's a lot. Yeah. And you were like, I'm in. And you were the one who really highlighted for me the value of, I think, what Vessel is giving as a container way before the heebie-jeebie.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's definitely informed on the way I live, on the way I coach, on the way I do breath work. It's just, again, when something comes from truth I love that you target, not just the intellect. Right? You're targeting the intellect. You're targeting it from a Torah perspective. You're quoting Rumi, an ancient Indian poet. You're bringing in psychology. You're bringing in so many angles into your lecture itself. It's so packed with information coming from so many different sources. It's fascinating. It's such a breath. Even the way you reframe some of the basic stories from Sefer Bereshis, right? We're a little bit stuck in our elementary school vision of that. And I love the way you reframe that. That's something we do in coaching all the time. We reframe the story. Let's look at it from another angle and look how much more we can learn from it. So I loved all of that. And then you also bring in the heart work, which is, again, that's the piece where it personalizes it to you. Let's do this inner work. Let's spend the time. Let's write things down. Let's give it some deep thought. How does all this information apply to me? How can I make this mine? And then on the next level, I guess that's the cognitive level or whatever it is. And then on the next level, you're bringing it back to like just somatic. Like, let's do this breath work. Let's do this meditation. Let's take our words. We put the words in. We heard the lecture. We did our own inner work. And now let's put that all aside and let's see what our body has to say. And I think the way you bring all three of them together is such a whole and complete way of targeting a person into really making real, deep change.
Thank you.
I love it.
I mean, in your module 2 was the one where we do the felt sense meditation, which is that really body-based meditation.
Yeah.
And I'm laughing because I remember on day 1 of season 1, I will never forget it because it became the thing that you contributed to the training, threading the breath. So on day 1, what we do for people, the uninitiated, we basically tell them, you're facilitating a breathwork session and you know nothing. Like, we don't teach you enough to facilitate on day 1. We throw you in the deep end. And Serele, who is the least heebie-jeebie person in the world, all of a sudden I turn around and she's like gently moving her hand, and we're not touching the client's body yet because we don't have that level of rapport. And she's like sitting on the floor. She has no idea what she's doing. She keeps saying she has no idea what she's doing. And she's like guiding the energy over the person's body. And this is the person who was like, no, I'm all logical. I studied psychology. I'm an academic. What heebie-jeebie is not my thing. She was the heebiest person in the room. And now we call it threading the breath. It is Serele's technique. We just taught it all through cohort 1. We're teaching it in cohort 2. And it is what you're saying. It's like the truth is something that we've always known in our body. And it's about getting out of that story. I have to tell you something else that, like, again, it's the Parshios now. We just finished Sefer Bamidbar, right? So this recording is going to be released like in a month, but right now as we're recording. So when you were saying that freedom is not doing whatever we want to do, right? That's the quintessential Pesach thing. Like we went from slavery into taking on the mitzvos. So like, how is that freedom? But it is freedom. It's because when you ascribe yourself to a higher framework, and then the best of you can come out in that, as a result in that framework, that's the freedom. It's not to have no rules. It's to have rules that bring out the best in you. But this is that thing that because Sefer Bamidbar is not learned, we're not in school during Sefer Bamidbar. It's always in the summer. So this is one of those things that we didn't hear a lot growing up. But the Medrash says, don't read it Midbar, Ela Medaber, that the 40 years that Klal Yisrael spent in the desert, they needed to learn how to speak. They needed to learn how to be in communication with Hashem. They needed to learn to be able to hear his voice. And they needed to learn the art of telling a new narrative. So when they were enslaved, when they were in trauma in Mitzrayim, it wasn't just enough to set them free because their own narratives, the story they told themselves about their trauma. And like, as you're talking about getting your clients out of story and like into their body, I'm like, this is totally like what we're doing in the Parsha right now.
Yeah, I love that. That's vessel. That's vessel in a nutshell. You just said it.
Yeah, and vessel it really is that. I almost feel like guilty, like almost like a guilty embarrassment when everybody that I've been interviewing so far has brought up the Torah piece. And I'm like, no, because I'm still coming from those years where like, don't quote Torah at me. Like, I remember being in high school thinking, I cannot wait till I graduate and never have to open a siddur again. And then all of a sudden, like, reigniting my passion for learning, not reigniting, probably igniting for the first time. Like, whoa, Torah is so cool. And we can look at this through another lens. And the stories we learned in kindergarten actually have a different voice. And to me, that became the foundation of a lot of the work that we end up doing. It's not just psychology. It's our psychology. Like reframing the narrative makes all the difference.
Sure. I love that. And obviously that's a true piece for you because look where you came back to. So you found your own truth in doing this work as well.
Just a little, are you coaching me on my own call?
Of course.
when we were
Would
talking,
I be a coach if I didn't?
Exactly. See, this just if she managed to flip the tables on me, like in my own call, it just highlights what a gifted facilitator you are, Serele. You're one of the best. You're one of the good ones. I said it here myself. Yeah.
Thank you. And you know what? Thank you for giving me the opportunity to discover things within myself that I didn't know were there.
This, by the way, I think the best part, I know we're supposed to be talking about vessel and we're talking so much about the breathwork training, but the best part for me about getting to spend a year with my students, like in person, is witnessing their growth, is seeing them come home to themselves and the smiles on people's faces, like the awe of like, I didn't know that I could do this. I didn't know that I could be this.
Right.
And by the way, that's one of the reasons that I want people to come back free of charge to Vessel every year.
Yeah.
Because when they submit their questions and I keep track, especially if they give me their names and I'm like, I know the question you sent in last year and I see where you're at today. It's the best feeling ever.
There's so much more to learn. There's so many layers to discover. We're not stagnant beings. There's never a point where we're done. We're never done. We're always going to be in a place of growing and seeking. And I think those are the people who join Vessel, the ones who are looking for growth and seeking for truth and looking to expand their world and maybe reframe their world a little bit and approach things a little bit differently. And that's a place we want to be in.
I always tell people that Vessel isn't for everyone. And I don't just mean vessel. I mean the work that we do, whatever that work is. Breath work is not for everyone. I know we live in a world where people want the magic pill, right? They want the one answer. And I'm sure you deal with this as well because you are a very gifted facilitator and coach. You are. I've spent a year sharing a space with you, and you are really gifted at what you do. But I'm pretty sure that even you would say that not every client is the right client for you. And not everybody that you meet should be, like, I'm sure you get asked a lot, like at some class or whatever. So what do you do? Right. And then there's this feeling of like, actually not right. So who do you think are the people who should be, who are the right fit for this work? Because I'm fully cognizant of the fact that not everybody is.
Yeah, so it's interesting because when people ask me at a simple, what do? I usually don't tell them.
What do you tell them then? Do you still sell ladies wear?
I don't know, but I find that I do speak about this work very much when I sense something from the person I'm speaking to, and there's a certain openness that they have. There's a certain inner. Okay, how do I? There's something you feel in people who want to grow. There's something you feel in people who want to grow intellectually, but also in their bodies. I talk about this with plenty of people, but there has to be that feeling of openness towards it. I think it's there are a lot of people who are a place where they do want to grow. I think most people in today's society are listening to shiurim. They are doing things to grow themselves. They're taking care of their bodies with exercise. We're all, I think, for the most part, in a place of a certain level of growth. This is a deeper level of growth. This is coming, as I said before, it's coming from an intellectual place, from an inner place, from a place of truth, from a place of finding your own truth, from a place of really connecting with your own neshama and kind of reframing the way you think and the way you work and how you want to show up. And I think this work really could be for everybody who's open to that. So it depends at what level you want to be at and how deep you want to go and, where you want to be at the end of this. But I think this could be for everybody, but there needs to be that openness to doing the work. It's not just about hearing the shiur or hearing the, intellectual end of it. It's also doing the actual work on a personal level, on a body level. And I think when all three of them are joined together, it's really magic. It's magic. You discover yourself.
So I have to ask you a question that I don't know if you're going to know the answer to, but I'm very curious and I'm wondering if you could help me out.
Okay.
So your background, the way you were describing even how you got into this work, you're a very thought out person. I think one of the things I have noticed about you is that you have the ability and the luxury of being spontaneous because you're very thought out. Like you're so clear on your frameworks, on your values, and you set yourself up so well that within those, you have a lot of flexibility to say yes, which is one of the things that you really give over to your clients. So it makes a lot of sense to me that you naturally were drawn to this module. Like module 2 is your module. One thing that I have noticed is that different people get triggered at different modules because they will bring up different things. To me, when I wrote module 2, I maybe struggled with articulating what I wanted to say, but when I put it together, it was kind of like the easiest module to put together. Like maybe again, the articulation of it, not so much, but the concept of it or the heart work. I keep getting mixed up. So for those of you listening who have no idea what heart work is, I'm allergic to homework. I think it destroys students. It's not homework. Vessel has heart work. It's just an exploration of your heart. It's not mandatory. And at Ignite, we don't say heart work. Your homework is your playbook because it should feel like play. Just putting that out there. Yes, we're a little bit like a cult. I think people accuse me of being a cult because we have inside language. So now it's not inside anymore. I made it outside. Now everybody knows.
Right.
Okay.
So I think had I known that people think you're a cult,
Yeah.
I don't think I would be here.
I wouldn't be
It doesn't resonate with me.
But I also wouldn't be here. I'm an introvert. I do not like people enough to want to lead a cult. Please leave me alone. Do not talk to me. Let me go home and be a mommy to my kids. People don't realize how allergic I am. Like, I love humanity. I dislike humans.
I think it's misplaced admiration.
Yeah, I will take it. I will take all of that misplaced
I
admiration.
think I have to throw this out there. One of my favorite parts of Vessel is the Q&A because watching the way you answer questions, first of all, so compassionately, without judgment, with such openness, and with such brilliance, you have such a breadth of knowledge.
Thank
It's
you.
amazing to see, and I that's one of my favorite parts. But like I say that with admiration, not with cult like
That's what they all say.
meanings.
Everybody in a cult says they're not a cult.
It's true, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this whole segment does
It's
not prove
out.
anything. Yeah, I think this may work against us. But
Yeah.
going back to the question that I was going to ask you about different modules triggering different people, what I have found is that for some reason, of an overwhelmingly large percentage of the men that end up doing vessel get stuck on module two. And it was so unexpected for me because I really felt that module two was such joy. It's coming back to your essential self, it's coming back to your integrity, coming back to the curious, childlike part of you that loves to say yes. And for some reason, I was not expecting this. I hear it over and over from the men that module two threw them for a loop. And I'm curious because you're the one who really delved into module two and you tend to work with men in your practice.
I
Do you
do.
have any insight as to what in module two do you think is triggering all the men?
I wonder. I wonder if it's because we're very used to identifying ourselves by our labels. So a man, may take very much pride in his learning. If he's a Talmid Chacham, he may take tremendous pride in his business. He may identify himself by that. As a woman, I identify my first and foremost as mother, wife, daughter, sister, all the different labels that we have is really how we identify ourselves. And we kind of set our lives by those labels. So what does it mean if we strip those labels away? Then who are we?
Wow, I actually did not think of it in those terms because when it comes to labeling, I would think that's probably, oh, excuse me, a little further, probably like by module five, when we're talking about the higher self. I didn't really realize that it could potentially come up for people even earlier. And I think you're right about when you said something about as a woman, I identify as a mother. I think just popped into my mind as you were talking that as a woman, we have to re-identify ourselves every few years.
Sure.
But men are taught to be one thing from birth.
Yeah.
And I never considered how triggering it could be for people to be like, wait, I have to just, what does my body say? That also gets a voice.
Yeah. Who am I at my core? What do I stand for at my core? Who am I if I don't have this job or I don't have this, label on me? And I think that's not something most of us think about a lot.
Do you believe that it is possible for someone to find their core? Or do we have a solid, unshakable sense of self, or is that something that would evolve over time?
I think that's constantly evolving. I think, there are other things that I'm reading and learning, and I think it comes down to viewing your inherent value as a person. You are at Tzelem Elokim, so if you value Hashem, you have to value yourself because you're a piece of Him. And the part of you that shows up in the world, I think you say this, is the Tzelem Elokim is the surface of that. So I think, again, that comes back to Torah and connection and Yiddishkeit. And if you value God, how do you not value yourself? How do you not value every person around you? So I do think it's something that most of us don't think about. Most of us, the voices in our heads are probably putting ourselves down more than talking ourselves up. Our inner eye is, we're used to kind of looking at people and maybe judging them or sizing them up. But I think when you do this work, and I think there's no one that's ever perfect. So I think it's a lifelong work to come back to, okay, but wait a minute. If I'm at Tzelem Elokim and they're at Tzelem Elokim, how do I want to show up here? How can I show up with self-respect?
I
How
feel
can
like
I
you need
show
to take
up?
this and add it to the module two lecture. I'm like, you just took module two and you just up leveled it.
Yeah, I mean, this is not sourced from me. I happen to be reading another book right now with a couple of friends of mine, and we're learning it together.
I think we're going to need to know what book this is.
Your Awesome Self by Sterna Ginsburg.
Okay, so
And
Tanya,
also it
Tanya
comes
sourced.
back. I'm sorry.
It's sourced in the Tanya, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, it's sourced from Tanya. And I think doing that work and doing this work at the same time definitely up leveled both learnings. And That's literally the chapter that we learned this week. And it fits so beautifully into here.
Wow. That really, again, it's going to bring it back for me to what we discussed earlier in the call, the difference between authenticity and integrity. I think if your sole focus is to show up authentically, the truth is who you are authentically is going to keep changing. Because I don't know, I woke up this morning in an authentically bad mood. That's if that's who I want to be right now, if I want to be my authentic self. But when you're talking about integrity, being a facet of remembering who you are and where you come from, it literally takes you out of how I feel in this moment and who I see myself as, who I want to be in this moment.
Yeah.
Wow, that's...
Yeah. I think that kind of ties back into you saying in the module that your neshama and healing and growth, it's relational. It's relational to the people around you. It's very hard to actually pinpoint exactly, what your essence is or what your neshama is. But when you think of it in those terms and you think of, okay, so if that's what it, then how do I want to act if that's who I am? Without really knowing even exactly who you are, right? You don't have to put a label on it. But again, it comes back to if I'm a Tzelem Elokim and that person, how do I want to come forward in this? How do I want to present myself? And I love bringing that all together.
So what you're really saying for the people listening, in case you needed this condensed and summarized, is Serele is not an easy person to do work with because she doesn't let you take the easy way out. This is not like someone could be like, well, I'm having all of these issues in my life that are not, I cannot be my authentic self. Right. What you're saying is you have to choose who you want to be and step into that every single day, no matter what else is going on.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you do that and when you choose from yourself, that's where the progress is made. Because again, I'm coming back to it. I can tell you what to do. Anyone can tell someone what to do. That does not resonate nearly as deeply as when you're listening to your own voice telling you what to do and what needs to be done.
Wow. That's amazing. Of course, there's that like obnoxious high schooler in me is like, but what's if your inner voice tells you to do something that's against the Torah?
Okay.
I had to.
Okay. So let's talk you down from that. What is it that you want to do?
Well, yeah, I know. We've done this. I remember this question actually came in last year on the Q&A where someone said, my authentic self wants to wear pants.
Okay.
And we literally broke it down on the Q&A. I mean, it wasn't an interactive call. I was breaking it down. And I was like, actually, I don't know that it's really pants you want. You want freedom of movement. You want to be comfortable, right? Like we all want that. I also want to move freely. It's why I wear gym coat clothes. I also want to be comfortable. Like it's never about the pants.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So beautifully said.
Yeah. All right. So Serele, I mean, I could keep talking to you forever. I'm watching.
This was fun. I was really nervous about this. As I said, this was the first time I'm putting myself out there like this. I'm enjoying it.
You're fun me too. I did tell you we're going to have fun.
Yes.
I know. And I'm like watching the ticker. I'm like, can I go for another hour? But if I feel like this is going to be like this whole mini series is like, I keep calling it a mini series and I'm having so much fun. I think that we can reassure people like we'll be back. Like we'll do an Ignite mini series. We'll do a breathwork. Like we'll do a lot of mini series so that we can keep talking forever.
I'm in. I said the first yes. The second yes is easy.
It's easier, right? It's like a cascade of yeses.
Exactly.
So Serele, where can people find you if they want to know more about you, if they want to possibly book sessions with you? You're located in Brooklyn, right?
I'm in Brooklyn. I'm in Flatbush. I can work with people on Zoom as well. And am I putting out my email? I feel so like a salesperson, but okay.
I'm selling you. You're not selling yourself. I
want to spell my name out for people. It's serelekatz8@gmail.com. And should I
You'll have to spell your name out. You'll have to spell your name out.
Serele Katz Katz 8 min hateva. And
number 8.
And also that's what Gmail gave me. At gmail.com. And am I putting my personal number out there? You know what? Contact me by email and we'll take it from there. Exactly.
But yeah, so if you want to know more about me, if you want to know more about Vessel, super simple. Go to fallyklein.com. If you don't already know how to spell my name, I mean, you're really not part of the cult. I mean, we're really, it's FALLYKLEIN.com/Vessel. Thank you so much, Serele. I so appreciate that you said
For
yes.
having me. This was a lot more fun than I thought it would be.
Here's to many more yeses and much more fun. Before we wrap up, I want to give you a little something extra, a sneak peek into my favorite part of Vessel, our live Q&A calls. This is where the content comes alive in real time, shaped by the questions, stories, and the needs of the people in the room. It's raw, personal, and never the same twice. And it's where some of the most powerful shifts happen. Next question. Hey, 3 exclamation marks. I'm so excited. My question is, if I don't forgive someone, is that the same thing as carrying a grudge? Thanks. It's me. No, not at all. Not at all. I'm probably not going to be able to do this question full justice, right? Because I think that's a class, not even a class. I think the idea of forgiveness can be a course in and of itself, right? There are many books written on forgiveness. We spend an entire portion of the year dedicated to what forgiveness is, right? As we go into Elul and Tishrei, we spend a lot of time grappling with these concepts: self-forgiveness, forgiveness for others, Hashem's forgiveness for us, right? World forgiveness. So this is not something that I think can be, squished into a tiny little Q&A. But my perspective on this is forgiveness happens when you feel safe, right? It's kind of when someone has hurt you, they have invaded your space, they have violated a boundary, right? You can't forgive if they're still in your space, if you're still reeling from what happened to you, if you're still living under the strain of what that event or what that action put you through. The way I would highlight this is, imagine you're at a wedding and you're doing all that dancing. See, if you find me at a wedding, which is highly unlikely, I don't like to leave the house. We know this, right? To me, 5 p.m. is like sweatpants time. Don't talk to me. But if you ever have the opportunity to see me at a wedding, you will not see me on the dance floor. You will likely see me, reading a book in the corner, because the dance floor is I think you're just asking for someone to be stepping on your toes in lethal high heels, right? So just imagine that you were on the dance floor and someone stepped on your toes in 4-inch heels. So your initial response is not, it's fine, I forgive you, right? Your initial response is, can you get off my toes? Because I'm not okay, right? So that's forgiveness. Forgiveness when you're not okay is like telling someone who's crushing your toes, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. I totally forgive you. And they're still on your toes, right? There's an arc of forgiveness. And the first aspect of forgiveness, in order to be able to forgive, is make sure you're safe. Reestablish yourself, your integrity. And integrity doesn't mean the way you behave, the integrity of your space. Like, am I safe? Am I still living in fear? Am I still living in pain? And that is a private thing that everybody does differently, right? Some people, they have a very well-developed inner world or well-developed resources, so they feel safe, they can bounce back very quickly, and they can forgive very quickly. Other people who have much more wounding or trauma and don't have that kind of scaffolding to fall back on, forgiveness can take a long time. Forgiveness can take a very, very long time, right? If someone just stepped on your toe and jumped right off, yeah, 2 minutes later, you don't even remember it. But if someone stepped on the toe that you already broke this morning when you stubbed it into the corner of your bed because you woke up at 4 a.m. to find some kid's pacifier and some other kid's bottle, right? And that toe has been throbbing. And then someone else stepped on that toe and they didn't get off it right away. Yeah, forgiveness is going to take a while, right? And it's not always like the person who stepped on your toe won't always know. Like, why is it their fault? Like, they could have stepped on anyone's toe and they could have stepped on someone's toe who was good or someone's toe who was already bleeding. Like, that forgiveness is never about the other person. It's about you. It's about, are you in the space where you are safe again, you're resourced again, and you're not living under that threat? That's the arc of forgiveness. A grudge is different, right? A grudge is when you make it about the other person. You're a bad person. You're terrible. I'm not going to give you the gift of forgiveness. A grudge is about the other person. Forgiveness is actually about yourself. Forgiveness is actually, I took care of myself. I'm safe now. I'm okay. And because I am okay, and by the way, being okay doesn't mean that you can go back to who you were before, right? Being okay just means I can take care of myself. And there are certain things that you'll never recover from, but you can still be okay from, right? I don't know that we ever recover from abuse. I don't know that we ever truly recover from some of the very difficult things we've been through, but we can be okay with what we've gone through. We can be okay with the growth that we've accumulated, achieved, and who we became as a result. So be careful. It's not just like, oh, I'm happy go lucky again. I've lived my life going, yeah, forward. There are certain things. I think I was very lucky. I was interviewed yesterday for, I apparently didn't know this. It was news to me. Teen Pages from Mishpacha has a hotline that teenagers can call into. I don't read magazines, so I do not know. But some of you are smiling on the call. Apparently, you know about this. So I will be featured on the Teen Pages hotline, Teen Space, I think it's called. Right? Yeah. Some of you are nodding. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. I will be featured, probably not under my name. They called me under my pen name, under Tzipi Keiten. So Miracle Ride, that version of me. So I did that interview and they asked me a really interesting question. And they said, do you think that on some level, having cancer as a kid was easier than some of the other things that people go through? Because cancer is something that everybody knows about, like no one blames you for it, right? You don't blame yourself for it. And versus like if someone's struggling with frumkeit or abuse doesn't often get talked about. And I said absolutely, having cancer was the greatest gift because everyone goes through something. I got a lot of attention for going through something. Like the years that I was bullied, nobody cared, nobody knew. It was actually like, what I mean, if you're getting bullied, it's probably your fault, right? But when you have cancer, everyone feels sorry for you, right? So what I was saying before about forgiveness is I got very lucky having cancer because nobody was the enemy. Like who was I going to make the enemy? Hashem. There was nobody I can blame. And I was also never going to be, I was never going to be healed. You can be in remission from cancer, but you have to live the rest of your life with the acceptance that cancer happened to you. And that doesn't mean you can't ever be okay. I am very okay. I am more than okay, but I am okay having had cancer. I will never be able to go back to the person I used to be before I had cancer. And that's something you have to know about forgiveness. You can be okay, even if you will be irrevocably changed forever. Right? You can still forgive. You can still be okay. A grudge is when you make it about the other person rather than making sure that your own needs are met. I hope that I'm doing this question justice because I know that it's weighing on my heart very heavily. Like as I'm reading this question, and I also know who sent it in because you sent your name, and I know a little bit about you from some of the other questions that you have sent in over the years. So I kind of have a sense of where this question is coming from, and where it's going, and where in the process you're at. And I hope I gave you something towards what you're looking for. Okay. Hey, Fally, it's me. I don't know if this is a weird question. Oh, I cannot believe we're still doing this. I cannot believe we're still coming off the vessel being like, I hope this is not weird. People, please send me all of your weird questions. I live for this. There are no questions that are weird. By the way, all of these books come from people asking weird questions, right? If someone didn't have a weird question, they wouldn't be researching. They wouldn't be coming up with new exciting information. Please ask all of your weird questions because that is how we grow, and they are not weird. Actually, who cares? If they are weird, the weirder the better. I love them. Please continue. Send them my way. Okay. It's been bugging me. When you're on vacation or after Yom Tov, you go to a course, or at the end, people say, okay, now it's time to go back to real life. What part of life is the real part of life? I guess what I mean of the real part is that the part that counts. I feel like I'll go to a workshop, and then at the end, I feel like I'm going back to real life. We have sukkahs, and after you feel like you're going back to real life. Is that what real life is? Why is it something I dread? I have no problem going to a therapy session and doing the work. So what part is the real part? Is having fun or going to a workshop not real? Or does real life mean the important part? The part that's most boring, but we have to do anyway. Yeah, I resent this, the real life bit. What part of your life exactly isn't real? Like what part isn't real? I mean, look, you're going to spend a significant amount of your living, breathing, waking hours in the toilet. It's just what we do. It's a biological reality. So are all the minutes, hours, and probably cumulative days that you have spent in the toilet not real? It's real. And if you've ever been sitting on the highway needing to go to the toilet and there was no toilet for miles, you know how real it is. That. Yes, I know everybody who's coming in and listening to a vessel call is like, what is going on? But that is very real. It's a reality. And so what gives us the right to determine what part of life is the real part and the not real part? I think what people are alluding to is the part where I don't feel alive. I just don't feel alive. But unfortunately, that's what real life is. It's just boring. It's just the mundane. It's folding the laundry. It's waking up early. It's putting the kids on the bus, right? That's the real life. I mean, vacation's fun. Therapy could be amazing, intense emotions. It's not real. And I challenge that. I mean, if you look at the tagline for Vessel is, you know, the everyday adventure of your life. I don't believe that there's any moment of your life that isn't real. I believe that doing the laundry, I think the doing the work that we do is for the purpose of being able to do the laundry in the same way. That folding the laundry can become this heightened sensory experience. I mean, some of you already know this. I really like doing laundry. My laundry smells really good. I just have to say it. When people don't hug me, but when people do hug me, they're like, "Oh, your laundry, like Fally, you have that smell." If you want to know, because I'm not the one baking bread on this call, so you don't get to see me do household chores when you're on vessel, but I'll tell you, the secret to having amazing smelling laundry: use less detergent than you'd think. Put in equal parts detergent and vinegar. So no matter how big my load is, I never put in more than one line of detergent and then a line of vinegar. And then I put a little bit of like Downy. And that is the secret, but the vinegar gets all the like embedded smells. Why am I saying this? Okay. Anyway, my point is I get very excited when I talk about laundry. Almost that, yes, I do. I'm going to blush on this call. I do. I get very excited when I talk about how my laundry smells because to me, there's nothing like sniffing your hoodie in the morning and be like, it smells good, so that's real life to me. It's just as real to me as getting on these vessel calls and reading. I know you want me to come do your laundry. I have to say, there's an aspect of OCD to my laundry too. Like everything gets folded in a stack. It's very even. They get folded on a board. It's color coded. If someone puts a shirt in I always know when one of my kids has been in my closet because the shirts get put in out of order and there's a color grade. We're not going to talk about this. Okay. We're not going to talk about this. But anyway, yeah. So, but I have that same level of passion, excitement, and commitment to the laundry that I do to my work. And I think that's what the work is. The work is recognizing that real life is real life. And again, I was very lucky to learn this at a young age. I've told the story before that when I was diagnosed, I told my doctor these exact words: "When is this over? When do I get to go back to real life?" And he said, "Never. This is your real life. You cannot put your life on hold until you finish chemotherapy. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Anyone can die in an hour. No one knows. You don't know what the next day is going to bring. Nobody knows." So he says, you think that your recovery is predicated, that your life is predicated on finishing chemotherapy, and that's when your life can begin. He's like, you can be hit by a car. He didn't say those words, but he was implying those things. You can be hit by a car way before your chemo is over. So don't give up living life for the promise or the delusion of a life that may yet be coming. This is the life that you have, and this one is precious. I mean, and a lot of us say this, we watch our kids growing up and we mourn, oh my gosh, that stage passed so quickly, but we didn't see it passing because we weren't in it while it was passing, because we were anticipating the times where they were going to sleep through the night. And I just learned, stop anticipating. Presence is the antidote to making your life as real as it gets. Life is real. Every breath is real. You want to know how you know? Stop breathing for a minute. Just pinch your nose and hold your breath. And then you'll learn how precious and how real every single breath you're taking already is. I think the words that we use, real life, we don't actually mean real. We mean boring, because there's this misconception that to be an adult, to be a successful adult, you just got to be okay with the boring stuff. Like, just you want to, that's real life. I might not be an adult. I might be an eternal child because I have just never bought into that belief that adulthood is boring. I have never bought into that belief that in order to be a successful adult, you have to figure out how to, just live a checklist and, do the boring things. I still find life fascinating, but it's a work. It's something I choose to do. I choose to say Moda'ani with a lot of excitement in the morning. I actually charge my phone on the other side of the room. So when my alarm clock rings, I have to jump out of bed, walk across the room to shut it off. I don't get to, hit snooze and roll over. So there's a certain amount of adrenaline that I force myself to have in the morning because I want to live with this value system of this is the real life. The good part, the bad part, it's, Gam Zula Tova is all of it. But I think we said this in one of the vessel lectures. The secret to Gam Zula Tova is this. This denotes presence. It's something when I can point to something, I can say, this In order to point to something, I have to be with it. I have to be here with it. And that's presence. If you want to really experience life as Latova, if you want to really experience the good, got to be able to say this. You got to be here now in order to say this. And that is not something that we get to do like that. That is, the work of a lifetime, which is why we come back to Vessel every year to continue doing this work.